Welcome to Unified Champion Spotlight. My name is Craig Torquist, and I have the great fortune of interviewing the stars of the inclusion revolution. Today, I'm very excited to have two gentlemen who are leading a school who has just made history here in the state of Indiana, and I'd like you to see them right now. We have the proud principal of Rochester Middle School, Mr. Oscar Hawes. And joining us also is Mr. Dan Bailey, who is the Champions Together in the Middle sponsor at Rochester Middle School. He's also a sixth grade social studies teacher and the eighth grade boys basketball coach. One of the eighth grade boys, one of the great coaches there at Rochester. Okay, so here's how they made history. Rochester Middle School is the first middle school in Indiana to earn the National Unified Champion School banner. Gentlemen, congratulations. That is a big deal. And we at Special Olympics Indiana and the IMLEA are very excited that you folks were able to accomplish this last year. Mr. Hawes, I want to start with you here since you're the principal of this award winning school. Champions Together in the Middle is a partnership between Special Olympics Indiana and the IMLEA, which stands for the Indiana Middle Level Education Association. When did you first hear about Champions Together?
So as part of the IMLEA, we are also a nationally recognized school to watch, and twice a year, the schools to watch principals get together in Indianapolis with Shirley Wright, and we discuss a plethora of things. And Lee Lonzo was there at our meeting and presented Champions Together to us. And as I'm sitting in the meeting, I sent an email to Mr. Bailey and another teacher, one of our special ed teachers, and asked them if they would be the ones to head up this program, and it took off right away. So just that partnership with IMLEA and being a school to watch allowed us to kind of get on the ship first as far as Special Olympics and Champions Together in the middle here at the middle school level.
What was it that Lee Lonzo said that made you think this would be a great fit for Rochester Middle School?
Well, so at the time of the meeting, which was probably 5 years ago, it was actually my daughter's sixth grade basketball season. We had a young lady on there that had some special needs, and the Twin Lakes School Corporation brought their sixth grade team up for a game, and their head coach and I actually coached baseball together. And during that game, we had a really special moment in the gym where there really wasn't a dry eye in the gym, and we weren't part of Champions Together at the time. We had just kind of made that happen for the young lady, and it was a moment that my daughter and her friends who play on the varsity basketball team now remember to this day. And as soon as Lee started talking, it just clicked. That moment came straight to my head. I was like, if we can have that moment for as many kids in our building as possible and in our community, it will be a game changer for us. And it really has been as we've moved forward.
Well, tell us what happened. What was the moment?
Oh, so the young lady, we had gotten her in the game before and she had never scored. And I talked to their coach. Like I said, I knew him as he was my baseball assistant coach when I was at Twin Lakes. And we set it up. And when we got her the pass the first time, she missed it. But those young ladies from Twin Lakes were absolutely amazing. They got the rebound and gave it back to her. And I bet that happened 4 or 5 times. And then when she finally hit the shot, to watch her mom's reaction in the crowd, to watch her teammates' reactions, and then to watch the reactions of those young ladies from Twin Lakes that didn't really even know her. And then you see the parents of the athletes. I mean, we're pretty intense as parents, that grade level of girls. And to see their reaction, to see that moment for not just that young lady, I mean, that's what it was based around, but it really affected the parents, the student athletes, and everybody in the gym. And so watching her joy as she scored that basket was priceless.
That's great. And now, did the girls on the other team know that you had had this discussion with your with the other coach?
I think the coach may have given them a heads up that we were going to try and get that young lady a basket. He didn't have details, and so they didn't know the details. But as soon as they got in the moment, I mean, that other team really made the moment happen with our team. So it was pretty special.
That's awesome. That's great. Mr. Bailey?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to pull your beautiful face up here. Mr. Bailey, you obviously have a lot going on. You're teaching full time, you're coaching. When he called you or sent you an email or texted you, whatever he did during that meeting, what inspired you to decide, you know what, I'm going to add this to my list of things to do. I'll agree to do this. I'd like to be the sponsor of Champions Together at our school.
Well, the big thing is that I always try to encourage everybody to reach out and try new things. And part of it is my boss called and said, hey, I'd like for you to look at it. But my very first teaching experience, my first year out of college, I didn't get a teaching job. I actually started as an instructional assistant with a special education teacher. So right out of school, I had immediate interactions with some kids who had some really special needs. So when this opportunity came up, I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer because it took me back to my very first year of teaching and all the really neat things that I was able to do.
Well, so you guys have jumped in with both feet to earn the national banner. It's not easy to earn the state banner that we present to schools. The national banner, there are significantly more things you have to accomplish in order to earn that banner. That's why you're the only middle school that's done it so far. I guess my question is, you have seen it's now part of Rochester Middle School. How has unified sports and Champions Together in the middle, in your mind, impacted your building? What's different now that you guys have been doing this for a few years?
The biggest change that I have seen is, I guess the best way to describe it was beforehand, we would see kind of two communities of kids through the school. You would see the regular ed kids and you would see kids with special needs, and they got along well and they existed well, but it was more of a coexistence. And after the first couple events that we held at our school, that relationship completely started to change, especially with our special needs group. I started to see them open up a ton more and become included more. I started to see them purposely go out to try to intermingle with the group of other kids. And then the kids without special needs, I started seeing them pull special needs kids in to where it all of a sudden wasn't two groups coexisting. It was just one group of students together in the school. So that was a really neat thing. I always thought it was nice the way the two groups interacted together until I saw them actually start to interact together. And that was really neat to see. I think that's probably the biggest difference. We're not anymore two groups of students.
Well, it sounds like they went from being friendly to being friends.
Exactly.
You know, Mr. Haas, I want to talk to you about one of the hot topics right now in education. Social emotional learning is one of the buzzwords or phrases right now. Do you see a correlation between social emotional learning and what you all are doing with Champions Together?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it just opens an avenue for conversations with our students. It builds a trust within the community, not just in the school community, but beyond our school community with parents. And so, I mean, they see what we're doing here and they see how we're touching students' lives. And it's just not touching our students with special needs lives. I'm telling you, it affects your gen ed teachers or gen ed students, our teachers, and like I said, our parents as well. When they see how connected we can become as a community within the building, it really affects the community as a whole as we are moving forward. And as you say, that social emotional piece is huge, especially as we had to isolate as a community there for a while with COVID. You know, I mean, there's just a lot of things going on with our kids who are from, 12 to 14, 15 years old that they don't understand all of that. And that just opens avenues of communication that just aren't there if you aren't participating in programs like this.
You and I were visiting last week, and you said that this is not billed as such, but it's actually been a very effective anti-bullying program. Talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I told you this last week, is we've paid for the former Colts player to come in and do, big assemblies in the gym, but there's nothing that has changed our building and changed our culture as much as utilizing our own student body and building these relationships and developing that community that I was just talking about. I mean, kids just realize that it's so much nicer when you are kind to each other, when you support each other, when you pick each other up when you're down, when you provide those resources for one another instead of trying to nitpick at each other. It just really changed the dynamics of our building. I know Mr. Bailey hit on it a little bit. Obviously, we don't walk through the hallways and high five right now due to the global pandemic we're in. But before that, I mean, those kids would walk through the building kind of head down, just trying to get from point A to point B. They went from that to high-fiving. Your stud 8th grade quarterback is now high-fiving your kid that was just on the volleyball court or played wiffle ball with him, because that 8th grade quarterback is one of our partners with our athletes. I mean, your girls basketball team, I know I already used them as an example, but they really connected with those kids when we did the basketball program. Those kids were coaches and partners out there on the court with them. The whole student body chanting for kids that probably have never heard their name chanted in that form before. It just develops that culture, and then that kindness just rolls over throughout the normal educational day.
Can you give some advice to other middle school principals who you, as well as anyone, understands the pressure that everyone in education is under today? The pandemic has only created a million more story problems. So they're saying, okay, I've got a million things to do. What is this again? And they've heard about the concept, but it may just seem like more work to them. What advice can you give them if they're on the fence about pursuing Champions Together in the middle for their building?
Tell you, the best advice I got was from Lee that day at the IMLEA meeting. What you do is you find a staff member who's willing to help you, you present it to the kids, and you get out of their way. I mean, our kids are amazing. Dan's got a leadership team, and then he's got branches of kids off of that he's developed. And he could probably give you the exact number, but we had a significant amount of our 400 students or 430 student body that were involved with Champions Together. If you get out of their way, the kids come up with phenomenal ideas. As a building leader, I'm blessed to have Mr. Bailey and then Mr. Basham, who now helps head up the Champions Together in the middle program, but they let the kids run with it. I mean, they just provide the space and time and guidance, but that would be my biggest advice. But I will tell you, every second, every minute spent with this program improves your building. It'll be the thing that improves your building the most. If you've not been a part of this, and I would encourage middle schools, our high school did not have Champions Together. We were the only middle school who had this for 2 or 3 years without our high school. Now we've built that foundation here, and now our kids are putting pressure on the high school administration to get it rolling. And I know Dan has been an integral part in that as well. But I'm telling you, once you kick it off, your kids will get on board, and it really isn't much more work from my seat. So now it's more work from Dan's seat, but I've got great people and we got great kids that make it happen.
I just real quick, I'd add to what Oscar said.
Sure.
I think it would be really important to emphasize to administrators that a lot of times administrators aren't willing to give up any classroom time because of the state requirements, and we've got to get this standard and whatever. And this is not something I've asked Oscar, but I would go out on a limb and say with 100% certainty that every second we have taken out of the classroom to do activities or events or whatever has paid off tenfold as far as the importance of keeping the important things the important things. You know, our administration has been really good about giving up time in the classroom for this thing, and that's what has made it spread through our school so fast, because you know, kids are here, and you know, if we try to do stuff outside of school, it makes it a lot harder for kids to get involved. But the fact that our admin has been willing to make it a part of our school day uh, has been a huge success, and I think that's a lot of the reason why it's spread so much.
I want to ask you, you've got these wonderful student leaders who are obviously invested in it. And I love the fact that they're the ones that are taking it to the high school. Because Champions Together started at the high school level, that is very atypical. But the fact that they brought that passion into a building where it wasn't currently in existence, and they're saying, whoa, why not? Well, let's keep this thing going. That's wonderful. How did your students respond or react when they found out that they had earned the National Unified Champion School banner?
There was a lot of big smiles and puffing the chest out a little bit, because honestly, when it's going on here, it doesn't seem like a huge deal. Like, it just seems like part of what we do. And so in our own little community, you know, it's something that they take pride in. But to get state recognition and then national recognition was really kind of cool for the kids to see. I don't, you know,
We're locked up here. Go back up and say that again. You locked. We lost your signal for just a second. You had said that you didn't do it for national recognition, but it was great to see.
Yeah. So when it's going on here, our kids aren't thinking about anything other than, hey, this is a neat event. This is really good for our kids in our school. Like, they're just enjoying it. They're not. I don't think they really understood the scope of what was happening. So to point that out to them was kind of neat, because it wasn't something that they were striving for, and it wasn't something that they had in their mind. It was just kind of an end result of what they had already been doing.
Yeah, that's not why they were doing it, but to point out that what you just did was pretty cool. That feels good.
Yeah.
I don't know if you discussed this as a leadership team with the students. One of our concerns this year is we have schools like you that have built up this wonderful momentum, and all of a sudden the pandemic has dropped in all of our laps. Have you talked about how you're going to continue that momentum in this environment of social distancing and isolation? Talk about your plans for the year and how you are going to navigate these waters.
Well, the first thing was to pull in a lot more people. You know, we started, once we got back in the building, I started reaching out to lots more staff people, just because we need a lot of new ideas. What it's looked like for us the last 4 years, right now it can't look like that. So, you know, I sent out a staff email, and within 5 minutes I had 6 or 7 responses that said, absolutely, I want to be involved. So we've kind of doubled or even tripled our brain power, I guess. We're going to start meeting. Of course, our 8th graders from last year, they've moved on. So now we've got to start filling in that leadership team, that student leadership team. But again, the fact that we do stuff in the school day helps tremendously. You know, we have, knock on wood, we have some great protocols that seem to be working really well. And so I don't think it's going to be a big stretch to be able to adapt those to some different events. We also have, our corporation has changed the special education department and positions in different schools and things like that. So we've got a lot of challenges that are going to be tough to address. but pulling a lot of new people in was probably the number one thing that we have started.
Do you have in your mind a moment or memory, something you observed since you've been working with the students and doing Champions Together in the middle there, where you thought, I am so glad I just saw that. That is exactly why I'm involved with this right now. Does anything come to mind?
I can't count how many times I've thought that, like, this is exactly why we do this. But there are two that'll never, I'll never forget. Oscar mentioned one of them. One student we had the very first years we did this, literally never talked to anybody and just walked head down through the hallways the entire school year. And the very next year, after going through the program and all the events that we did, you would have thought that kid was running for mayor. I mean, it was amazing. The transformation in less than a calendar year was absolutely amazing. And then a second instance was we had an end of the year meeting with all of the athletes and the partners, and so there were about 60 of us together in a group. And I asked at the end if anybody wanted to say anything, if anybody had anything to say. And I was really surprised that one of the athletes, who really had never like outwardly said anything or shared anything, actually stood up in front of the group of 60 plus people. And he said, "This is the best thing that has ever happened to me. I love coming to middle school now. I've never loved school before. This is awesome." And then he ended it with "rock on." So those two things will forever be in my mind. Those kids are in high school now, and because of our situation, we at the end of the year last year, we actually started pulling elementary and high school kids all together to do some things. So trying to expand out to our other schools in our corporation. But those two kids, they'll always stand out.
Did you get to know their parents, those two kids, and what were their? Do you have any idea how their parents responded to this transformation?
I personally didn't get to know them very much. One of the parents is around the corporation a little bit more, but I have had nothing but really positive responses, quick emails or texts from parents saying, "Hey, thanks for doing this. This is really awesome." Parents reaching out and saying, "Hey, can we do more?" No.
Well, as a parent of three daughters, I always appreciate any other adult who's involved with something that opens a door for them, or turns on a light for them. And it's so you change not only that child's life, but boy, what a gift to the parents the program would be as well.
I'll tell you,
Mr. Hawes,
I've actually had more interaction with general ed parents saying, "Hey, this is awesome." Our local TV station, they live air every event that we do. And so it's out there on the TV in the community to watch. When we play a basketball game or a wiffle ball game or something, they air it as if it's a high school sport. So we have lots of gen ed parents who will email or call and say, "Hey, how can my kid get involved in this?" So that's really neat.
Those are great stories. Thank you. Mr. Hawes, how about you? You get, do you have one that comes to mind? You shared the one, but that was kind of a prelude that got you into it, that basketball game. Yeah. Do you have an example of a moment where you thought, "Oh, this is good stuff"?
So there's a couple of, I'm going to share two actually. One of them, we had a student that was nonverbal, really didn't like coming to school. But once we got him into the environment of Champions Together, his attendance skyrocketed. So that really helped with that. But he also, we did our wiffle ball game, and one of our staff members, Mr. Basham, who helps with it, nicknamed him the Big Bambino. And so he would get out there, and then the kids would start chanting his name. And just, I mean, the student struggled a lot with health medically, but to see the smile on his face every time we did a Champions Together activity was priceless. I mean, just to see that kid, you know, with his medical issues and his being nonverbal, he just had opened the door to what Mr. Bailey and I have talked a lot about, is his interactions throughout the building, you know, increase. And so then that just makes his school day so much better. But probably my favorite one, and I'm guessing it's probably the same young man that Dan just talked about, but at the end of the year, we do academic awards, and we recognized our Champions Together kids. And me being me, I gave the microphone to the young man and asked him about Champions Together. And, you know, he talks for a little bit, and then at the end, he just yells, "RMS rocks." Now, that was his 8th grade year. As a 6th grader, he and I went rounds, as administrators do sometimes with these kiddos. But when we implemented this program when he was a 7th grader, it changed his whole dynamics in the building. He became, I mean, he's still probably one of my favorite kids that's ever went through the building, but he then loved school. And anytime that we would start to have maybe a behavior, if you mentioned Champions Together, right back into doing what he needed to do in the building. And then the biggest thing with that young man was when he went to his IEP meeting as an incoming freshman with the high school administration, the guidance counselors, and adults he didn't know, he vouched for himself. He came to us as a 6th grader, didn't want to be in school, to going into high school due to, and I believe this program, Champions Together in the Middle, he vouched for himself and questioned those high school administrators. Is there going to be a Champions Together that I get to be a participant in? And I will tell you, and most administrators know, if you can get those kiddos to vouch for themselves, that is a life skill that everybody needs, not just, you know, our kids with special needs, but that is powerful stuff. If you get that kid that comes to you as a 6th grader, hates school, it's always a fight to get him to do things academically, and we got him involved in this program too. He's vouching for himself when he became a freshman. It's pretty awesome. And you asked Dan about parents. I know that parent really, really well, and she has thanked me multiple times for the transformation of this young man's attitude towards school. And it was all due to Champions Together in the Middle.
Those are awesome. Those are great stories. You know, I was thinking when you were sharing those about that phrase from Cheers, you know, everyone likes to go to a place where everyone knows your name, you know, and we all like to walk into a room and people are glad to see us. And the Big Bambino, I mean, that's what made me think of that it feels good to have people that are happy to see us and light up when we walk in the room. And it sounds like you guys have done a beautiful job of creating that culture there. And I know you two are the first to say that you didn't do this alone. And Dan, you were talking about that's Lee Lonzo 101. You know, let the kids do it. Get out of their way. You know, he's masterful at say, all right, send me your leaders. And then he'll talk to the leaders for a little bit. Said, all right, I'm going to leave the room. When I come back in 30 minutes, I'm going to hear your plan. And he said, he walks back in and they got a plan. And it's usually dynamite. You know, so challenge them and move, get out of the way. Anything I didn't ask you to that you'd like to include in this before we wrap up? Did I forget something?
I can't think of anything.
My thing is, if you're out there and you're in middle school and you want advice, call Dan Bailey. You know, I mean, you can call me and I'll get you in contact with him. But I'm going to tell you, if you talk to Dan and Nate Basham, who's our other sponsor now, they can give you guidance and you can come visit us. We've had a couple other schools come and do Champions Together training here. Our doors are open. We'll talk to you. Do we do everything right? No. Will we learn from you? Absolutely. And we hope you can learn from us too and make the program happen in your building and change your culture as quick as you can for the better of your whole community.
Dan, there are, I don't know, 500-600 middle schools in the state of Indiana. Is there a best time for them to call you?
I have great administration that lets me address what I need to address when I need to. So
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen, both for your leadership, and thank you for taking time out of your schedule to visit with us here. And I'm Mr. Hawes. I'm proud to know you because I've been there in your building before. And Mr. Bailey, it's great to meet you today, and I look forward to crossing paths with you. Just so people know, Rochester Middle School, how many students are in your building this year?
426.
426, and you're in North Central Indiana. You're straight north of Indianapolis, 90 minutes?
Yeah.
About 90 minutes. You're not a huge school, but you are a small school doing really big things, and congratulations to both of you and to all your students.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Rochester Middle School, they're the gold standard in Indiana, and I've enjoyed very much talking to you guys. Thank you very much.